So, where I normally start this, and it's really fucking sad because I feel like I should think of better ways to start a podcast, but it always comes back to this. Childhood to now. Okay. What's the journey been?
Okay, well, I was born in Wales, in Newport. My dad is Pakistani, my mum's Welsh. I grew up there until I was 21, and I was auditioning for drama schools in London, and I got down to like the last group of people for 2 years in a row to like a drama school I really wanted to go to. And the head of the musical theatre department came out and was like, we really love you, you're so talented, we want you to be, you know, a part of the school, but you just don't fit the musical at the end of the year. And it just really showed me that, I mean, even in my auditions, there was nobody that looked like me.
How old were you?
I was 17 turning 18.
And they said that?
Yeah. And I realized that, like, you know, it was very white dominated then. Back the theatre world, I think acting as well, a lot of the roles were white dominated. I think it's still the case now, but I think there's still, you know, more openings for ethnicity. But yeah, so that happened. And then on the same day, there was an audition for a college in the States. So I auditioned and I got a scholarship, and I ended up just saying, you know what? I'm going to head off to LA at 21. Never been there before. I did it. I got there, didn't know anyone, went to college, and I was like, you know what? It makes more sense here for me. Like the TV and film world, the commercial world, modeling, everything that I want is set out from Hollywood, essentially. So I stayed, worked under the table with no papers at restaurants, had a bunch of crazy experiences, worked really hard, and I just finally got my citizenship.
Well done. That's
And
huge, by the way. Let's not skim over that. Like, it's really bloody hard to get a citizenship in the US.
It was hard getting my green card, and it was years and years of trying to get that done. And it's been years and years of like trying to really get it together. And everything that I've done in my career has been off of my own back, essentially as an immigrant going to another country with no family and nobody to help me and no real knowledge. At the age of 21, you have no knowledge of what it's like to be an adult, let alone being an adult in a whole new country on top of starting your career in a whole new country. It was a lot. There's been a lot of experiences, and I don't think I could pack that into like a quick thing. But yeah, that's essentially my life, I guess, from then until now.
Do you feel like moving to the US gave you like, and being like an immigrant and being in this place where there's no support and no backup and no safety net basically has given you the chip on the shoulder or the resilience that you needed in order to make it work?
I would definitely not. I don't have a chip on my shoulder at all. I think that if I'd stayed here, I would have had my family as like a full crutch, and I don't think I would have lived to my full potential. I think that I am strong, resilient. I am equipped to deal with literally anything. And it's really made me focus on myself in so many aspects, even like loving myself and relying on myself and being independent as a woman and making sure that I make my own money so I don't have to rely on a man to do that for me. So everything that I have is solely from me. So I think those are great qualities to have. I can go anywhere around the world by myself. I can run my own business by myself, and I'm not afraid. And I feel like fear stops people from doing so many things. And I just don't have fear anymore. I just go for it. Like, why not?
I love that. I knew we'd get on. I'm exactly the same. I'm just like, do it for the plot. It's fine. Like, it will work itself out. Yeah. The reason I ask is I do feel like you kind of like living the American dream, right? Like you came from the UK as an immigrant to the US, like immigrated there, like you've built your career and your life there. You're now a citizen. And I do think the American dream, as we sort of see it in shiny lights and stuff, is built on immigration. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, it's built on that. Like, you're in a place where no one can help you. It's 100% on you to make it happen. And that's what I was asking.
I mean, essentially, the United States is built off of foreign people. They had a massive genocide of the people who really are from there, and then white people, our people, British people, and Europeans colonized the entire area. Yeah, and they dragged people from all over the world who didn't want to be there, and black people built America. As far as I'm concerned, like, America is what it is because of black people, not white people in America are very confused. It's very racist, and there's a lot of issues there, lots of issues, but yeah, essentially it is built off of immigrants. All of my friends that are immigrants are the hardest working people I've ever met.
Do you think that is because they're immigrants?
Yeah, we call it the immigrant mentality. It's like, you don't know what it's like. And I didn't know what it was like until I moved. I was very privileged living here in the UK. And then moving to the States, it was like, oh, wow, like, I don't have all of these privileges. I have to, like, make it on my own. And it's like a survival technique. You have to do it. It's either that or what am I going to do? Go home? With my tail between my legs? Like, my personality would not have been okay with that. Absolutely not. Yeah, my pride's way too high. So yeah, it's definitely run from immigrants for sure.
To circle back, so you go to college in the US when you're 21. What happens next?
Graduated college. I had a year with, like, specific papers, so that meant that, like, I had to work within the industry, but I don't know anyone that comes out of college and just works, like, in the extent that you want to work in the industry. So I worked in a movie theater because technically it's under the same thing. And I had no car. And at the time there was, like, no Ubers.
I was going to say, in LA, that's tough, right? Like,
yeah, because everything's
no
just spread
transport
out.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, everything was spread out. So I worked at the movie theater, and then I worked under the table at a restaurant for cash. And when I used to go to the restaurant, I would walk 3 miles to catch the bus. No. This is every day, night. And then I would catch the bus from, like, Burbank into Hollywood, it would probably take me, like, 45 minutes to an hour, even though in the car it would be, like, 20 minutes. Then I would have to walk another, like, maybe half a mile. And then I would have to do that in the night on my own to get back home, like, in the dark. And I used to do that maybe 4 or 5 times a week on top of doing that to go to the restaurant. Not to the restaurant, to the movie theater. So yeah, it was a lot of, like, grinding. But working in the restaurant, working in the movie theater helped me meet a lot of people in the industry, which I kept those contacts. And then when I did have papers to, like, actually work, I was able to, like, use my contacts to then start my career.
It's interesting that you're talking about networking, because that's how we've met. Like, we met at an event, like, you know people I know people you know, etc. And we were like, oh, this is really fun, like, come on the podcast. Like, talk me through that. Like, how important is networking, and, like, how do you do that as a year? Because I feel like this is a mass generalization, disclaimer, but I do feel like women inherently aren't as good at networking as men are, because we lack, maybe biologically or socially or whatever the conditioning is, sometimes lack the confidence to be able to be like, I want to meet this person, I want to talk to this person because it's going to help me. And it's same with, like, in careers, right? Like, typically women are often paid less, or don't get the promotions they deserve, or don't get the pay rises they deserve, because they're less aggressive in asking for it.
Yeah, I do agree with you to an extent, but then I also think it's the way society has made us think that by a certain age you have to be married, you have to have kids, you have to be doing X, Y, Z. You have to be able to cook and clean and everything to look after a man. They don't teach you if you have a dream, then you should go grab it. For a guy, it's like, you have to do that. And I don't think that makes men better at networking. It just means that they have no choice, because they have a pressure on them to be the breadwinner and to be the person providing for their household. So for them, it's like a man's world where they're all kind of there and they have to network, if that makes sense. Whereas, like, really, when women get together, we're great at networking.
I was going to say, we're much better at communicating than men. Like, but that's how women communicate together. Yeah.
And we find ways to interact with each other outside of just business. Like, all of the amazing women that I've met in business, we've connected on a level of, either it's like dating, we're in our 30s and it's just so terrible and how terrible men are, or we've connected on, like, you know, an outfit or something outside of just business, which makes us relatable. And I think that's so important with networking, for it to be that's the great thing about being a woman, that it doesn't have to be aggressive, that you find something that's relatable. And when you're a likable person, people want to work with you. And then on top of it, you bring the goods. Women are just better.
Women are awesome. It's like that nurturing thing, right? I think that's a big part of why, like you say, like women are great communicators. It's because we're very like biologically and maybe whatever condition why I'm very nurturing. Like,
yeah,
to me, like I'm instantly attracted to other women who are like, fuck it, like hence why you're here. Because I was like, she's a fuck it girl. Like I need to have her on the podcast. Because like I just feel like when you surround yourself with people like that, you become more like that. And I don't know if you heard that saying, and it says you're the total sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So you want to surround yourself with like the best people humanly possible.
Absolutely. But I also think you should surround yourself with people who are like kind of not on your level, because it also helps them and it's good to give back. But you also know that they're not really on your level, and it also shows you on a level that you don't want to be on. I'm
so funny. I work in public relations and I'm like, I don't watch reality TV. I do. I watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills instead, but I don't watch the Kardashians.
I guess.
But this clip came up on TikTok, and it was Khloe Kardashian, and she was saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I was like, I feel that. Like I felt that. And I think that comes back to this whole point about networking. Like, what advice would you give to someone who was 21 now listening to this podcast? Like, what benefits has networking brought your career, but also how did you go about making those connections and cultivating those relationships?
Okay, so firstly, my advice would be to just go for it. Utilize your social media. DM people. If you want to say something, DM them. Like, people respond. You would be surprised. Like, people you wouldn't even think, they will respond to you. Also, I think it depends on your career, but if you're in the industry, definitely like find out where there's panel discussions or events or things that you have access to, that you can go to and meet people. Do your research of who people are. And I don't just mean celebrities. I mean people in marketing, people who book the jobs, people in branding, people who run the companies, like people you want to be in front of, know who they are, know their position, and go up and speak to them. You can speak to them about anything. Just make conversation. And once the conversation starts, you start to like open up. Then they'll ask you who you are. And then you tell them. And you tell them what you want to do. And just find that moment. I think also, as far as my career, I would not have a career if I didn't have networking. Because when I went into modeling, I fell into it because it was during the time when the curve industry was like just starting. And my friends were all starting to model, and I wanted to act. And I went to meet up with a manager, and he was like, well, you are really pretty, but you're too big to be the lead, but you're also too pretty to be the best friend. So you need to figure out like what it is that you want to do. And I was like, okay, like, so either lose weight or be ugly. Like it does. So it didn't really make sense to me, and I was really disheartened. So,
how old were you when that happened?
I was like 22.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I wasn't good enough. It made me feel like as if I didn't feel like I wasn't already good enough by not getting into drama school in London. It just felt like it always came down to my looks, about my ethnicity or my size. Like I was never good enough. The industry wasn't open enough to accept someone who was mixed race and curvy. Even in imagery, like in fashion, on TV and film, like growing up, I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and it was so alienating growing up in Wales with like all of these very fair white girls who are very skinny, and I just felt like I didn't fit in. But I'm very much Welsh to the bone, you know what I mean? I just didn't feel like I was Welsh. I didn't feel like I was a part of anything because of that. So it was really disheartening. But then it's just funny how everything works, because I went out to dinner that same night with my friends who were all curve models, and they were like, just start modeling. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And they forced me to take my digitals, and I got signed within the week. I found out I was the only Pakistani plus model in the United States, which I was like, you know what? This is going to be a whole other road, which it was. But the reason that I kept working, the reason that I kept getting opportunities was because of networking. Because there was no one else like me. When you package models for auditions and castings, they can't really package me. Like, I'm an individual. There's only me. So I'm not going to go in with the white girls. I'm not going to go in with the black girls. Even I somewhat look Latin to an extent, but I think that I stand alone. And it's companies felt at the time when I first started modeling that it was a risk to use something different. So I really had to use my personality and my networking to get me in those rooms and get me those jobs and pave the way for other girls like me to have opportunities and to be seen, to be represented. So young girls like I was can look up and be like, wow, she looks like me. I am beautiful and I can do anything that I want to do in life.
That's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
Do you still feel that pressure?
I feel pressure in a different way now. I don't feel pressure as far as like in that sense, because I am who I am, and now that I'm in my 30s, nobody can tell me anything.
By the way, did you find when you turned 30 you were just like, fuck this shit?
Yeah.
That was the best thing that ever happened to me, was turning 30. And I was in my head, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be 30. It's going to be so bad.
It's the prime of your life.
Prime of your life. I feel like your 20s are your fuck up era, and your 30s are your like fuck it era, and you just go out with confidence.
And I've never felt more sexy.
Yes,
feminine. My sex life is better.
Yeah,
like my sex drive is higher. I think also
disposable income, your career's going great.
Can travel wherever I want, do
whatever the fuck you want.
I don't care what anyone says to me.
No, 30s are great.
Yeah, my career is like right in its prime. Like I really thought turning 30, I was like, oh my God, I haven't accomplished everything that I wanted to do in life. I'm such a failure. I don't have a husband. I don't have babies. And that's all things that I didn't want at 30. But society has put so much pressure on us to feel like that we're not doing anything as women. But then when I actually turned 30, I was like, I'm good. It's fine. I'm doing great. It's fine. Because then you look at other women who are 30 and you're like, wow, we all look really young. We all look great. We're all thriving. All the girls that I know in their 30s making money, traveling the world, having a great time. So why not?
And also I think you get like a level of confidence when you get to like 30, 31, 32 that you just don't have in your, like I feel like in your 20s, because you're still so unsure about, you're still a child. Like, I know this sounds really patronizing and I don't mean it to be in such a way at all, but I had my first kid when I was 26. I got married when I was 26, had my second baby at 28, and then I filed for divorce when I was 30. And I feel like that period of my life, I was doing grown woman shit, but I was a child. Yeah. Like, my mentality was so like young and like just didn't really know what the fuck was going on. And now, like, that Amelia wouldn't recognize this Amelia now. Like, this Amelia now is just like, no, it's good, I got it, like my shit's handled. Like, and it's almost like the fairy tale that I was sold, that you were sold, that every other little girl is sold, is like, I had that and I was like, yeah,
it's just oppression, isn't it?
Obsessed with my kids, like, so happy I did it, no regrets. But I'm like, that's not the fairy tale that I want anymore. The fairy tale I want now is like empire, like live my best life, have a fucking great time doing it.
But I also feel like when we were growing up, we weren't shown that. Imagery wasn't showing that. Did your mum work? No, my mum was at home. So but my mum was always very much like, she always used to say to me, the world's your oyster, like grab it with both hands. She always used to encourage me to do things, but I didn't look up to my mum for that. I looked up to my dad a lot, actually. My dad is a business owner. He's self-employed and he's also an immigrant. And I think seeing him and hearing his stories of how like he came here with no English and he built his businesses up from the ground, and he just started working it because he's in the car business. He was working on cars when he was like 14, just like trying to figure it out, and he dropped out of school and stuff. And I didn't really appreciate that mentality and how hard he's worked and everything he has until I moved to the States, and I used everything that I saw from him. He doesn't even know this, but
we'll have to send this to him.
Yeah.
He's going to blush.
I used everything that I saw from him and his mentality to like give me that fight. I mean, obviously I'm half him. And I just think that, I think the reason I have the strength I do in business is because of my dad. But I do think that it is hard for girls when we were younger, to be able to feel like, yes, we can do X, Y, and Z. I feel like we're the first generation to really do it and step outside of all the norms, even fight back against all of the misogyny and sexual assault, domestic violence, whatever it is. Like I feel like our generation is the first ones. And then these Gen Z girls, they have like piggybacked off of us, and they're even more like strong in what they want. And I think that's really great because they're seeing imagery of us. We're like the pioneers of this new thing. So I think it's great, honestly. And I think that's why people are getting married later and women are doing things later, because they're prioritizing their goals and their careers, as they should, because it's their right to.
100% agree. Have you seen that? It's gone viral on Instagram so many times, but it's the artist that does the like, this is a woman and this is a woman. And like they have side by side images, and it'll be like a woman who's like in tiny little outfit, tiny little dress, whatever. And then there'll be like a woman in like hijab and like, the full length skirt and stuff. And then it'll be like, this is a woman and this is a woman. It's like one who's holding a baby, and then like another one who's like, I don't want kids. And I just love it so much, because that's exactly what being a woman is. It's like, it's not about what people tell us women are. It's about what the woman wants to be.
But it is what we want to be, but we're still fighting for those choices.
Sure.
Like, look how it is in the States right now. They've taken away Roe versus Wade, and in certain parts of America, like, people are not able to get abortion care at all, and they don't have that choice. That choice has been taken away from them. So, and then look what's happening in Iran right now. They're still fighting in 2022 to have the choice to have their hair out or not. And that's not the only thing that's going on in Iran, but like, to me, I just feel like the oppression that women have to put up with in all facets of the world at this day and age is just so ridiculous. And I just feel like we're just constantly fighting. And thankfully, the women before us, like in the 70s and 80s, they fought for us to be able to vote. They fought for us to be able to even work and
open a bank account.
Right.
You couldn't open a bank account as a woman in the UK until 1980 something. You had to get a man to co-sign it with you if you wanted to open a bank account. You couldn't even start a business on your own. You had to have a man to co-sign the business.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's just like we deserve choice, and I'm so glad that we are standing up collectively in whatever culture we are, and supporting other cultures in whatever is going on in their countries, to be able to have choice collectively as women and because I don't even think it's really about being equal, because I don't want to necessarily be equal to a man. I do believe in gender roles, but at the same time, I want to be able to have that choice. I'm not looking over there at what the men are doing. I'm looking at what opportunities we have as women and as an ethnic minority. Like, what choices do I have, and what is it that I can do to help other women? And I think that's what people forget about feminism. They think it's all about, like, hate men. Men are doing this, whatever. And it's not about that. You don't hate men. Like, that's not a feminist. It's about us. And seeing over there, okay, I acknowledge that there is bigotry and misogyny and all of these awful things that come with men, but there's also some amazing men. Like, there's also men that are really working on themselves and having therapy and are emotionally intelligent and want to support us and want us to have the best. So I think hating men is not the way to go.
I'd love to get onto that, because I do feel like, and maybe it's been perpetuated by social media a little bit, because I do think social media is one of those things where one person says one thing and then you just all kind of fall down a black hole together, and it's like that mob mentality, right? But I do think modern day feminism to a degree has been rebranded as like, let's bash men, because it's, as you said, it's all about them, but it's not about, and men, by the way, should be feminists too. Like, feminism means equal rights for women, right? Like you said, it's not about being equal, it's about having equal rights and opportunities. But for me, it's all about, how can we uplift women? How can we make women have more opportunities? There's more pathways, like more ways in which we can bring each other up instead of worrying about what's going on over there. I don't know if you've heard the saying, chaos is a ladder, right? And it comes from Julius Caesar, where he'd be like, right, well, let's create chaos over here. And then these people won't know like what's going on because they'll be so distracted by the chaos. And I do feel like a little bit with this whole, like, you know, men need to do better and all this kind of stuff. And yes, I agree. There are lots of men that need to do better. There's also lots of women that need to do better. But we're distracted what the real issue is.
I think it's yes, we are just, some people are distracted.
It's important to say that. Not everyone.
I also think that women are finally finding their voice and they're finally expressing how they really feel about being discriminated against, being abused, being disrespected, being oppressed. I think that women have the right to stand up and speak out. And if that comes across as frustrating or upset or angry at this present moment, then I'm sorry, but they have to hear it. So, and it's okay that some women hate men. They hate the men for what they've done to them. You don't know that their individual story. And some of the things that women have to put up with are actually disgusting. So I don't think that it's necessary people are getting caught up over here. I think women, everybody is different, and a lot of women are expressing themselves in the way that they know how. And I think it takes leaders, people who are able to articulate and find ways to maneuver the system and put in laws in place and stand up for everybody else. Those are the people that really need to think about how they're addressing the situation, if that makes sense, because it's the same in war. I'm not saying we're at war with men, but low-key feels like we are. But
sometimes when I open TikTok, it feels like it.
Yeah, but when you're at war, you know, there is the people who are living it every day and they are angry and frustrated and they're going out in the streets and they're rioting and whatever. And then there is the people who actually are working to sit in the rooms to make change and finding ways to actively make change. But without that ruckus, there wouldn't be an opportunity for those other people to make change. So I think it all collectively goes together. And I think that women are just expressing as they should.
As they should. I mean, TikTok's a great platform for expressing. Yeah. It's my new favourite place, I have to say.
Yeah, I could scroll on for hours.
Hours. I'm obsessed as well. You were on Sharon Gafka's podcast recently. Sharon and I, we have a great time talking about all this stuff. No, it's like normally like in the DMs on Instagram, and she'll just be sending me things, and I'll just be like, oh, for fuck's sake.
That's me and my friends too.
Yeah. I don't want to kind of cut us off here because I think this is such an important topic and I really want to do it justice, but I'd love to delve into body image because I feel like you've touched on it a little bit when you were going through earlier, like your, you know, childhood to now and all the things that you've gone through with college and universities and management and things like that. And the one thing that really stuck out to me was what that manager said to you, which is, you know, you're too pretty to be the best friend, but you're too big to be the main character. Like, first of all, what the fuck? Like, we'll pick at that in a sec. But that in itself, I feel like is not an isolated incident because that's obviously something that's happened to you and that's, you know, a moment that clearly impacted you because you're talking about it now. But there are so many women that will be listening to that who've had moments like that, whether it be through interaction with an individual or something they've seen on social media or like a magazine that's been shoved in their face. Like similar age, we grew up with diet culture of like, Hello magazine, here's how to lose 15 pounds in 1 hour.
Splattered.
Yeah.
On the front page.
Jessica, I never forget, I don't know if you remember this, Jessica Simpson, like overweight or like fat or whatever it was. And like literally, she was tiny. It was like a bad picture. I was like, anyway, we'll have to pull that up when we do the videos. It's like ping up the picture of Jessica Simpson. But how has all of those moments collectively impacted your body image as a young woman, but also you're still a young woman, but like maybe as a slightly more like self-aware woman now?
You know, I had really bad body image when I was growing up and my mum impacted that. Her own body image impacted my body image.
Was she always on a diet?
She would go in and out of diets. I think that she had this image that it wasn't even her fault. It was like what had been bestowed upon her. And then I don't think she realized that she put that onto me. She was not mean or aggressive, but it was definitely knowing that I was in like the theater and everything, and combined with being in dance and always being the fat girl, even though I wasn't even big, and like doing ballets, and I could never be the ingenue. I was never the pretty princess. I was always the witch or the bad like evil role. But those were the best dances as far as I'm concerned. It was turns, jumps, everything that I'm good at because I've got strong legs. But I was never like the pretty princess because of and it all came down to my weight. And then even like trying to do more dance, and you would go and they would weigh you. I'm like,
weigh you?
Yeah, I was like 16 and I went to...
And they'd weigh you?
Yeah, they would weigh you, and I got told that like, you know, my legs were too big. I would never dance. I would never do anything in theater because I'm just too big. And then now I'm seeing girls that dance for Lizzo, and they're like big girls, bigger than I am. And I'm like, wow, if I had seen that when I was a kid, like that would have changed like my confidence so much. And I'm so glad that Lizzo is like doing that and
love Lizzo so much,
putting that body image out there.
But not just the body image, just the attitude to it as well. And I think that is infectious.
And giving, I mean, even Nicki Minaj, when she had bigger dancers, she had girls that were more curvaceous dancing for her, and that was years before Lizzo was even out. I was like stunned. Stunned. I couldn't even believe it, because all the girls I had seen were like the same size in a kick line, long legs, very skinny, things that I never was.
No boobs,
Yeah, I just never thought that I was even pretty because of it. And then I think, so I think my mum, I think the dance, I think acting, theater, all those things, all the comments over the years, always having the biggest costume, all these things, like it really affected my body image. And then when I went to college in the States, I really believed that I wasn't going to be able to have a career at all unless I lost weight. And I lost like 50 something pounds in college, and I was at like 130 pounds. I don't know how like much stone that is, and I'm not supposed to be that slim. And I was like losing my hair, and I was just like very just frail, and I ended up fainting because I like wasn't eating enough, and I was overworking myself. I'm like dancing all day. Like theater, musical theater is a lot. It's really strenuous. Your voice, everything. You really have to look after yourself. And I'm doing all of this to try and be a size, to be accepted, because I thought that that's the only way that I was going to have a career. And it just didn't do me any good whatsoever. So yeah, growing up, I was really affected. And I think now, and then just to add on to it, when I got into the modeling industry, I was told I needed to put on weight. So it was like, I went from, you have to be skinny, you're too fat, you're too this, from the moment that I was born, really, up until like my early 20s, and then started modeling. Well, you're not big enough, your boobs aren't big enough, you're not sample size, you need to put on more weight, these girls are taller than you, bigger than you, whatever. And then you're looking at them and you're like, oh my God, like I'm not big enough. And then you're looking over there like, oh, well, I'm not small enough. And then you're like, oh, what am I supposed to do? And I just had to get to a point where I was just like, you know what? Suck it. I'm done. I'm a bad bitch. It is what it is. I need to be the healthiest, happiest self that I can be. And I feel like that's when I really started to look at myself and really accept my body, and really look at myself naked and like accept my body and be really happy with myself. And I think that just gives me so much more confidence, which also perpetuates into every aspect of my life. That makes me more pleasant to be around. It makes it easier to talk to me. It makes my relationships better in every aspect of my life. I get more opportunities in my career because I just am who I am, and it's okay to be that. So I think, it's been body images.
It's been our journey.
And none of these things are from me. These are all external things that were put onto me.
It's interesting. I don't know if you've read The Chimp Paradox, but in The Chimp Paradox, the author talks about these things called goblins, which are put into our head, and they are limiting and unhelpful beliefs that typically we inherit before the age of 8 years old. And so they're very difficult to remove because they're like deeply entrenched in our behavior. And it could be as simple as you know, you come home with your picture that you drew in kindergarten and you're like, Mommy, look, I did the picture. And your mommy goes, oh my God, that's an amazing, I'm so proud of you. Let me put the picture on the fridge. Normal thing to do, right? But what you're telling a child by doing that is that the pretty picture is what's made them valuable, instead of sitting down and being like, oh, like, tell me why you did that picture. And you know, that I'm really proud of you for thinking like that. You're rewarding the picture itself. And so that can then create issues way down the road, which I think most of us have, of like, I'm not good enough unless I achieve X, Y, Z. And so it sounds to me, and I can totally relate, because I have a very similar thing of like, my mom, like, again, wouldn't say booze with goose, but like was always on a diet. And so like I learned very early that like we don't drink full fat Coke, we have to drink Diet Coke. And so I was very like interested in like just by curiosity, I guess, as a child.
Do you also feel like seeing your mum reward herself for being in smaller sizes, it made you feel like when you were in a smaller size, your mum would reward you? Like,
not consciously, but probably subconsciously.
Yeah, definitely.
And also like, so I had a very severe eating disorder from the age of like 14 to about 21. And to be honest, I say 21 loosely, it was really about 27 that I fully recovered from it. And a lot of that was about control and about like, I was the biggest kid at high school, and like there were kids that made comments about it, and like, yeah, boo fucking who. But in isolation, those little moments aren't that, going back to what I was saying about those moments stacking up, in isolation, those moments are kind of insignificant, but over a span of time, like with your manager, with the ballet teacher, with you being weighed when you were 16, like it's like chipping away, isn't it? Eventually to like, you just sort of break. And so you can either break one way or break the other way. And I broke the other way.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to get over that like toxic relationship with food. Now I am the most confident, I love that you said like standing naked in the mirror stuff. I do that all the time, and I'm like, you're a bad fucking bitch. And like I talk to myself in the mirror. I'm like, if I have a bad day, I'm like, you got this. Like I'm my best friend. But that moment only came for me when, to be honest, it was kind of in the pandemic when I kind of realized like, is this going to be my life? Am I going to sit here and cry over the fact that I'm like not going to fit into a size 10 again for the rest of my life? Or am I going to actually live my life? Right. And ironically, you were saying you're more pleasant to be honest, because I've lost weight because I'm so happy. Like I'm not doing anything different. I'm just exuding confidence and happy because I don't give a shit about it anymore. So it's not my sole fixation. Did you have a moment like that where you were like, you can look back and be like, that was the moment that changed the game for me? Or do you think it was more like a build up?
I think all of my issues weren't deriving just from body image. I had abusive relationships. So I had a lot of mental and physical, psychological abuse that bestowed insecurities upon me that didn't exist before. So I think when I did rebuild myself, it was a lot. It wasn't just the body image. It was lots of things. And I think it was my late 20s. I've been having therapy for like 7 years. And I think the start of it was when I really just started writing affirmations about myself on a piece of paper, and I put them up on the wall and I would say them to myself every day. But that was because I was at like my lowest point, and it wasn't just to do with body image. It was so many things, and I was just so broken and traumatized that I think that was what really was the changing point for me. I was probably like 26. And then over time, it's just like you keep implementing those positive things. And I'm not saying life has been perfect, because it definitely hasn't. And it hasn't been easy. And there's been days that I've been devastated, and healing from trauma is not a linear journey at all. But I definitely would say like from the age of 26 onwards, I started the journey to having a better body image and image of myself.
I want to dig into the domestic violence piece because you're such a huge advocate for it. And I know you do so much for charities with regards, because obviously you've got a personal experience with it. Before we go into that, do you think that like the two are interlinked?
I think that if women were taught how to love themselves more from a young age in all aspects of life, they would learn how to have a healthy relationship with themselves, which would ultimately lead to healthy relationships with others. And I think that it would teach women how to set healthy boundaries without being scared to do so, which would also put them in a better position to not even allow, not that it is anybody's fault that they are abused. but it would give them better tools to sift through behaviors and set boundaries on things that they don't want to accept before it gets too bad.
Are you okay in talking about your experience?
Yeah.
So talk me through like the relationship and when things started to
well, I
go
actually
wrong.
had 2 abusive relationships. That to me was really embarrassing at first, but I didn't realize that it's actually really common.
Why did you feel embarrassed?
Well, because I'd gone through one really terrible situation, I'd overcome it, and then the next relationship was also abusive, and then I'm having to go back to square one. I'm having to go and try and move on again. Like, it's embarrassing. Everyone around you thinks that, you think that they think that you're weak, and that you're just an embarrassment. Like, I've let this happen to me again. Like, it's my fault. But it's not. It's none of it's my fault, but that's just how you feel in the moment. My first relationship, he was actually in college with me. He was American. We were together in a relationship for 2 years, but he was in my life for like 6 and a bit. When we first met, there was no real abuse. I think now when I look back, there were like certain signs of his behaviors, but he was never physically abusive to me. That started when we got into a relationship. A few months in, he started getting very verbally aggressive and isolating me from my friends, getting very controlling about the things that I wear, things that I do, who I was around. And I was in my early 20s. I didn't know that was like a hard no. I just felt uncomfortable by it, and I'm a very like strong person, so I would just be like, no, I'm not doing that. But I think that also made it worse. And then the one day, the physical abuse started when I was at his house and I was in the shower, and I got out of the shower and I forgot that I didn't take a towel into the bathroom, and I got water on the floor. And when I was stepping to get the towel, and he got so unbelievably frustrated at me, and I was so confused that I started giggling, because I was like, what? Like, you're not serious. Like, there was no way he could have been serious. And then he just like grabbed me and threw me across the floor, and then lifted me up half naked, grabbed all my stuff and threw me out of the apartment. And I was just left outside of the apartment like stunned. I didn't even know how to process it. I couldn't even like figure out what had happened. And then obviously he did what they do in the cycle of abuse and apologized, love bombed me, and then went right back to it. But it quickly escalated in that relationship. It wasn't long before he was strangling me and like dragging me by my hair and showing up outside of my house, and a like very frightening behavior. It took me about 5-6 times before I was actually able to like actually leave him, and he stalked me for a long time after it. And I'm pretty sure he still stalks me now. He just doesn't act upon it in the way that he was before. So when I left that relationship, I tried to go to the police. They didn't help me.
How did that make you feel?
Isolated. I felt abused by the system on top of being abused by my partner. I was also...
This was in the States?
This is in the States. And I was also like filing my green card renewal at the time, and he was threatening my immigration. So I was just really afraid all the time. And I just felt like there was nobody to help me. Even like I started talking to my friends around me and family, and I still felt like they didn't even understand how severe the situation really was. I even started like Googling things online, trying to find girls like me, like girls that were my age that could give information. There was nothing. I couldn't find anything. There was the domestic violence helpline. I called them. They weren't helpful. There was like nothing. Like there was no, like the way I am now online, there was nobody like me that I could find. There was nobody I could relate to. All the women that were doing TED Talks and stuff were all women in their like 50s, 60s, white women I couldn't relate to. And I'm like, I'm just alone. Like I'm alone. Like I'm not going to be able to get out of this. And I didn't even have anyone to help me file my restraining order. I filed it. And I got the temporary restraining order. He violated that multiple times. The police didn't help me. And then when I went to go and get the full restraining order, his mum knew the judge. And the judge just basically said to me, like, you're a strong girl, you'll get over it. And I like broke down in the courtroom because I was like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. Like, that's it. So I packed up all my stuff and I came back to the UK for like 3 months. And in those 3 months, and we'd been broken up over a year. In those 3 months, and I know my friends and family, they meant well, but they were very much like, oh, you need to stop, you just meet someone new, it's time, whatever. And then I ended up meeting a guy here in London who was seemingly the complete opposite to my ex. He seemed so wonderful, very charming, love bombed the shit out of me.
Narcissist.
And I thought I knew what the image of an abuser looked like. And I didn't know until I met my second partner that abusers come in all shapes and sizes. They come in all different cultural backgrounds, financial situations. They seem different depending on what their main traits are. So he like really love bombed me, got me very like, I think he also could see like the abuse that I'd been through. And he gaslighted me, and I told him like, I don't like my throat being touched. I'm very funny about that. And I explained why. And we were in the shower one time and we were joking around, and he went like this, like to my throat. And I started panicking. He didn't touch me, but he went towards it, and I saw it in his eyes, like he was aggressively doing it. But he was doing it when he was like laughing at the same time, which also made me more scared. So I started hysterically crying. And then he gaslit me and told me that he didn't do that. And that I was thinking it. And he started doing that a lot to me, like different things. And I was like, and it really messed with my head. I was like, oh my God, I'm going crazy. Like my ex-boyfriend has made me go crazy, and I've met this new guy who's so nice, and I'm thinking that he's doing things that aren't happening, but they were happening. He was trying to make me seem like I was crazy. He even told my mum that he felt that I was mentally unstable and that I had moderate personality disorder, which you have to be like fully diagnosed for. And I definitely don't have moderate personality disorder. He was just trying to turn everyone against me and make me seem crazy so then he could abuse me. And then he put his hands on me one time, and we were in London, and he punched me in the face in the bus, and then followed me
on
back.
the bus?
Yeah, on the bus in London, in front of people too. And
no one did anything?
No, I got out so quick though. There wasn't even chance for anyone to help because I literally ran. And he like followed me, came back to the apartment that we were both staying at the time, because I was in town for work, and he started hitting me with his shoe. Why you would even, that's so degrading too. Like you took your shoe off to hit me. Like just the thought, like the process that he went through in his mind to do those things. But I went to the police then the next day, and because of my experience in the States, I kind of knew what I needed to do to get what I needed from the police, it's the fact that you even have to think like that as a victim, that you have to make sure that you look like a victim when you go there, that you look devastated, that you're able to...
You're not too strong, you're not too...
Yeah, and then on top of it, you also know all of the things that have happened, you can articulate them well multiple times and they believe you. Because when you're in shock and you're traumatized, you miss bits out of your story. And I had to get into this fight or flight mode that thankfully I had, which I know a lot of women don't have that when they're being abused. I had that, and I was able to get him arrested and charged with assault. And I got my restraining order, which it was kind of like a relief because I was like, wow, I actually got justice. And then it made me think, like, to me, what he did to me was nowhere near as bad as what I endured in the States, and I got justice here. I got justice for this, and I didn't get justice for someone who, like, probably would have killed me if I'd stayed in that relationship. It was hard to process, but I did feel like at least here they have Claire's law, and if someone else dates him now, they can look and see, okay, well, he has that assault charge and he's abused other women before, so hopefully that'll mean that if he does abuse someone again, which he probably will, that he will get jail time and he'll pay properly for his actions. I hope it doesn't happen to anyone else though.
How has that experience impacted you?
That is a very weighted question.
Yeah.
And it has impacted every single aspect of my life. It has been so difficult to rebuild every facet of myself. And I didn't realize that I had the strength that I had. There's been times that years after the fact where I've discovered something new and I'm like, wow, I've come so far. Like the initial things, I had like complex PTSD. So the initial things were like, you know, just opening the door multiple times to check that there was no one out there, turning on the light on and off to make sure there was nobody outside, opening the blinds multiple times. Like I was so panicked all the time. I would wake up sweating, nightmares, like even walking outside and there was like a loud bang, I'd be like, oh my God. But then the great things about leaving were, oh wow, I can choose what I want to eat now. I can choose what I want to wear and no one's going to tell me anything. I can choose where I want to go. My phone isn't like going off 24/7. And I actually took the silence, the buzzing, like vibration tone. I took that off my phone because every time that I would hear it ring, it would send my anxiety off because it felt like he was there again. And that was like right at the beginning. And then things I'm learning now are like recently with like dating and stuff, I've gotten so much stronger on my boundaries and I know exactly what I will and will not put up with. And I'm so proud of myself because even a guy I've been like recently talking to, I mean, he's great, but there was some things that I just didn't really like. And to have that strength to be able to voice that to him and not have fear of voicing my feelings and feeling like I'm not safe. I was like, wow, I'm just in such a better space to be able to just have this conversation and articulate and not have anxiety and not feel like the world is coming down on me. It is so, the impact that the abuse has on your life is, you can't even put it into a sentence. It is in every single aspect and it takes years and I will be forever evolving from it. But I'm definitely in a really great place.
I've never really spoken about this publicly before, but I can relate, not from a domestic abuse perspective, although like I'm sure there's plenty of women, like you said, it's unfortunately not uncommon. But I was assaulted when I was 13 and like you, it's impacted every single thing. Like relationships with men, always pick the wrong person, like don't know. It's like constantly like seeking out approval. Like, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? All that kind of stuff. And again, like you say, like, I don't think you ever really get over it. I think you learn to like live with it and evolve and not make a good of what happened, because I don't think you can ever make good of something like that, especially as I was 13 and like I came home, my parents didn't believe me, and like that's a whole other trauma situation to deal with. But it's definite, like now I'm older and I can look back and with like more of a maybe pragmatic approach, I can see how it's impacted like every single decision I've made, which I think from a place of self-awareness now, I'm like, okay, I can understand why I've made those decisions now so I can make better ones moving forward.
Yeah. But you're not wrong for making any of the decisions you made.
No.
And it's not bad that you felt any of the feelings that you felt. I think that especially when somebody like violates you in whatever aspect that is, because abuse comes in many forms, I think that as a woman, it just like, you just feel powerless. You feel like you don't have any control over anything. And I think that's how it does seep into body image. And
mine was so related.
Things.
My eating disorder almost to the day stems from that incident happening, because it was a control thing. It was like, I can now control.
You didn't have control over anything else?
So I can control what's going in my body. Yeah.
And it's interesting how it's both body related as well.
Yeah. You always will live with it. Like, I can't change what happened. And I don't think I'm ever going to be over what happened. Ever. Like, I think there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it. Like, every single decision, including relationships I've been in, by the way. Like, I got married when I was 26 to literally the first guy that was nice to me. Like, literally. And I honestly believe the relationships I've had with men up and until meeting my ex-husband were based on the trauma that I had when I was 13. Like
Absolutely.
it was seeking out like bad people, basically.
Absolutely. But I think I agree with that, but then also the getting over it part, I think that you do get over it. You do get over it, if that makes sense. Like the incident, you get over.
Yes. Yeah.
Because for me, when I think about like the physical abuse or the sexual abuse or anything that I suffered in my first relationship particularly, because it really stems from there, I am not devastated or attached to those things anymore. They actually, looking at the person that I am now, it doesn't feel like those things even happened to me. I feel like I'm very much moved on from that place. I think it's the aftermath.
Yeah.
And going through the different, it's like level 2, level 3, okay, level 4. It feels like once you get through each level, there's different things that come up that bother you that you know stem from that, but you are over that. If that makes sense. I think it takes years to get over.
15 years of therapy, baby. You're 7, but like, I feel that's important to acknowledge, right? Like I'm only at that point because I've had professional help.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, I don't want to go as far to say it's like I'd be dead, because someone would have sorted me the fuck out, but I was not well, and I'm very, very thankful that I was in a position, and my family were in a position to be able to get me help that I needed at that time.
But if you don't have the tools or the money to get help, there are lots of ways to help yourself in the meantime. I don't feel like it's different for everyone, but things that helped me was I definitely like journaling my feelings. That really helped.
Do you still do that?
I don't do it as much now because I don't have these overwhelming spurts of feelings that I need to get out. And I have a lot of amazing people around me that I can talk to if I want to talk about something. And I'm not afraid to speak. And I think when you start journaling, sometimes it's because you don't really want to tell anyone and you want to get it out, but you don't know how to express it to other people and you don't want to be judged. So you put it down on paper. I don't feel judged by the people that I'm close to, and I feel like I can talk to them. And also I have a incredible therapist that I have been with for 7 years and I talk to about lots of things. So yeah, I don't journal as much anymore, but that did really help me in the beginning. Also, just like taking time for myself and being kind to myself, like going to get my nails done. Like I do that every 2 weeks without fail.
Yeah, me too. It's like my little self-care thing.
Right, and I need to actually go now. I'm in London, but like just little things like that are just for you. I don't think people realize how important that is for your mental health. And it might be the smallest thing, like going to Starbucks every single day, which is what I do because I'm a Starbucks addict. Like those things are my things. They're things that make me happy, and I should do those things for myself. So I think it's if you don't have the means to start therapy right away, there are lots of things you can do to start the process of being good to yourself and healing and being kind and gentle with yourself.
One of the things that I did was I kind of did like an exercise where it was like writing down all the things that trigger me, like in any way, right? Like it's not just like in a, you know, it could be that I'm late all the time and like being late triggers like whatever. But I wrote down a list of all the things that triggered me, and then I wrote down a list of all the things that make me feel good, and then I built my routine around the things that make me feel good. So like your Starbucks doing nails or thing, like I meditate every morning because like I actually love, like I sound like such a fucking wanker saying that, but I love it. I love like lying there for 10 minutes before my kids wake up and just literally doing nothing but listen to some amazing Australian chick talk about shit and manifestation in my head. I love it. Like it's my favorite thing to do. Boxing, obsessed. Do it twice a week religiously, never miss it. Like,
you know what? Martial arts and boxing is really great for abuse survivors. It was really helpful for me too. I did a lot of boxing, MMA training. Like it helps get your frustration out. It also helps balance your mind. It helps you feel like you have your strength back and control. Like we're saying all these things work for us.
Yeah.
And you can't tell people what works. You can only share what works for you, and it's different for everyone. But definitely that was something for me also.
It's definitely that whole me thing. It's like it's making like you said, the time and the moments for you. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in not doing that because you want to see friends, you've got to work, you've got the kids, you've got the boyfriend, you've got the girlfriend, you've got like all these like
you
priorities.
just don't want to think about it, so you keep yourself busy.
Yeah.
You try and do everything you can to not
But
think about it.
Yeah.
And being alone is when you have to think about it. That was the hardest part for me, was when I was finally having to be alone and face it. I don't know, that I pulled out every bit of strength that I had in me to sit alone by myself. And now I don't want to be bothered. I'm always by myself. So,
me too. I love my own company. Yeah. I'll sit there talking to myself all day, like have a great time.
Like there's like that TikTok, and it's just like they're talking like, oh yeah, I'm by myself.
Yeah. Or the other one with the girl like dancing around her kitchen with a glass of wine, being like, why do I need to go out? I'm having a great time by myself. I'm like, that's me.
But you don't realize how frightening those moments are when you are traumatized, when you are scared of dealing with it. You don't want to be alone at all. I was so frightened to be alone. I think once you're able to do those things, then you're able to be like, okay, this is what I actually like. Because then you find the things that you like. You start listening to yourself. You spend time with yourself. You start being kind to yourself. This doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but yeah.
I do also think, again, like this is not, it's nothing is ever anyone's fault. Like if someone's put their hands on you, or, you know, even verbal and emotional abuse, like that's not a victim's fault at all. But I do think, from my perspective anyway, going through all of that has given me such a self-awareness. And to what you were saying a minute ago, like knowing who you are, like I really feel like I know who I am now. And I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? But I do wonder, looking back over the last like 15 odd years, if I would have come to the same place I'm at now, if I'd not been through level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 of shit.
You probably would have, but you would just be a different person. And it's okay to be it's okay to be the person that you are. And I don't like the commentary of like, if this hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here today.
Because it's like you're being grateful for the abuse that you suffered. And all the things that I've been through, I did not deserve to go through any of those things. But as the women that we are, we have used those things to utilize us in propelling forward and making the best out of a bad situation. And I actually feel like all the things that I've learned personally over this journey, it's somewhat my duty to stand up and speak, because I am strong and I'm good at articulating, and I have a lot of understanding, and I have a lot of things that I can share to help other people. And I don't think that I wouldn't want to help women if I hadn't have been through this. I still would want to help women. I just think that having an actual experience makes me more empathetic and more understanding of the women that have been abused. But you obviously, everybody's story is different. But yeah, I just had to slightly disagree with you there.
No, like everyone's experience is different. And I think that's a really important point to make. And one of the reasons I love having conversations like this on this podcast is for that reason. Like, I would never want to have a situation where I have people sitting across the sofa from me who have identical experiences and identical opinions, because what the fuck am I learning from that?
Right.
It's really important that we have people that challenge each other and disagree. And I think, again, like with social media, not to kind of tone it down a little bit, but there's such a risk of there being an echo chamber if you're only surrounding yourselves with people that agree with you and have the same ideas as you and the same opinions as you.
I also think in social media in general, it's very hard to have your own opinion because of cancel culture, because if your opinion slightly sways from what is seen as the norm or the trending opinion, then you're the bad person.
Let's talk about that, because you've got a lot of followers. So how do you let's like dive into that, because I think that's a really, really important point.
You know what? If I'm really honest,
fuck all of you.
I've obviously already talked about abuse, a lot of women's issues, whatever. I've been doing that a long time, But now I'm really moving into the space. I'm moving out of modeling completely and moving more into a space of like women's activism and really working on helping women in everything that I can do to make change. And I'm really anxious by it. I'm not anxious because I'm sharing my story, but I'm anxious because I'm putting myself in a position to have to speak and make decisions and stand up for certain things, and I'm putting myself right in the firing range for more abuse, more online abuse, as if I don't get enough online abuse as it is just for my body image, which I have literally, I could go on my Instagram now and show you like trolls, just constant trolls. Like, it is what it is. That doesn't bother me. But I think because it's a cause that I really believe in, it's a cause that I'm really passionate about, and I really want to be a part of the change. It is very nerve-wracking thinking about like, okay, well, how am I going to word this where I still get my point across, because I believe what I believe and I stand by it. But how do I also word it in a way where it is not necessarily jabbing in a certain way or affecting things, or people can take it too wrong? You have to be very, very, very careful online, especially when you're talking about certain things, and especially being an ethnic minority. And, you know, I'm not Black, but I am speaking for women who are ethnic, so Black comes under that category, and I want to be able to make sure that I say the right things and it's not coming across any type of way where, you know, people feel left out, or they feel like you're not really speaking for them, or you're not helping them, or you're leaving them out. And I think, and I know that Black women are the most discriminated against, and it really does upset me. And it upsets me that they don't get the help that they need, and they're the most abused. In statistics, they're the most abused. And because I'm not Black, and with the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything, it's hard sometimes to want to help and not really know, because I'm not Black, I don't know, you know. It's like hard, because I can experience some things as an ethnic minority, but I'm not experiencing it as bad as them. So, you know,
appreciate but can't understand.
Yeah. It's hard to know like what to say, how to maneuver things, how to join in to help. And I think, yeah, it's a difficult space with that in particular. And then also just online in general, like feeling the pressure to have to stand up and speak about everything because you're a women's activist and you care about women's rights, and that means women of all races. Then you feel the pressure to speak on certain things. And I like I said about the Black women thing, when the Black Lives Matter thing came out, I felt so much pressure to speak, because I want to speak and I want to help, but it's like, you're not Black, so you don't have a right to speak in certain aspects, but you're also not white, so you can relate in a certain sense. So, but you can't really share your experience. Your experience is invalid in this scenario because you're not Black, but you need to speak to support. It's a very hard position to be in when, that scenario in general.
So how do you navigate that? Because I do think that you've got a platform, right? A large platform. And I think inherently when people have large platforms, people in the community that you have, like online, will look to you and say, hang on a minute, why aren't you talking about that? And you can have that about everything. Like, it's not just about women's rights. It could be obviously in isolation of you, for sure. But like, there is so many other things that people will be probably putting pressure on you to talk about. How do you navigate what to comment on and what to not comment on? Because I do really feel like not making a comment on stuff is also like a very grossly,
I think that the people that follow me know where my real interest lies, and it's not saying I'm not interested about other things like animals or whatever. It's not that I'm not interested about that, but I'm not going to speak on a topic that I don't have information on.
Yeah.
That I don't have actual concrete foundation information on. And I'm also not just going to be a click sharer either. Like, I will share things here and there, but if I don't know information on it, there's no point in me speaking, because you're just going to get a bunch of fluff just because I feel the pressure to say something. And that doesn't help. That doesn't help anything. And I also don't like the whole bandwagon of like, pray for this place. No, I don't want to send my prayers. If I want to speak about it, I want to be able to actively help.
Yeah, be proactive, not reactive.
So sometimes it takes me a while to even speak on things, because I'm researching and figuring out what exactly is going on. Because there's a lot of like fluff on the internet that's not true and different things. And for example, I have a lot of people that I really love and care for live in Haiti, and I've been there a few times, and you know, the country is really bad right now. Their president got assassinated last year, and now they're in a position where there's no gas in the country at all, and the government, it's just everything's up in the air. There's gangs over there that are kidnapping people for money. There's a lot of things going on, and they had a complete lockdown happen over there. People were basically burning things in the streets, and a lot of my friends were still over there. They managed to leave Haiti, and that is something that's very close to me, because my friends live there. I've been there, and it's really, and Haiti's just like such a special place to me that I felt like I needed to speak on it. But then again, I didn't just repost everything that came up, because I noticed that a lot of Haitian Americans who have not been to Haiti, maybe ever in their lives, because their parents are scared to go, don't actually know what's happening over there. They're reading what's happening in the news, which is fabricated, and then they're posting stuff online, which is just creating more fear around Haiti and not really what's happening. So it wasn't until I got on the phone with my friends and really talked about it and figured out what exactly is going on. And then when I saw certain things, those were the things that I reposted that I knew were accurate and correct, and I could be part of giving the awareness and be a part of the support that I want to give. But I knew that it was the right information, and I wasn't just doing this. So I think that's the really important thing, is knowing what to speak on, when to speak on it, and having the right information. And then also trying to figure out, how can I actually help? But you can't help everyone. You can't help every single cause. You have to pick a line and just go for it.
I think that's really good advice for everyone on social media, not just people who are having large platforms like you do. I think there's definitely a trend of people being like, oh, this is happening, it must be fact, share. And it's like, going back to what we were saying earlier, the way that social media algorithms work is it gives you more of what you like. So if you're only getting one type of thing in your feed, you probably need to look elsewhere to get information to support that, or rebut it, or
even
whatever.
the stuff that's happening in Iran right now. I went and followed on TikTok people who are in positions of power, Iranian activists, who actually have real factual information on what's happening in Iran. Because the stuff I was seeing, like just in news outlets, I was like,
it's not the full
this
picture.
doesn't make any sense. And I don't feel like I'm getting the full crux of this. So when I started watching the stuff, they put a lot of like stuff that's happening. They have people there in Iran with all of the information. And I was like, okay, I'm getting the information I need. I know in the ways I can help, but it's not always giving awareness. That's not always the way to help. Sometimes you're helping and you don't have to share that with social media.
There are so many things I could say on that. Like, LinkedIn is, anyone that's listening to this will know what I'm about to say, but LinkedIn is one of those places where it's like, if you do a good deed, if you don't share it, it didn't happen. And it's like that, like, I can't.
Sounds like Facebook too.
Yeah, I just, down that rabbit hole, it's not really a vibe. Okay, so I want to kind of circle back a little bit to where we sort of left off with, you know, getting to the end of these two abusive relationships and going on that journey. What has it been like, and what advice would you give, maybe not advice, but share experiences that you've had of rebuilding and almost like rebranding yourself after going through like the most awful experiences, not once, but twice? Like, how did you start that process?
The first thing was just like to pick myself up off the floor and stop crying and stop wilting about and wanting to kill myself. I think could just stand up. Then also secondly, I started reading a lot. I started trying to find ways that I could help myself. And then I made this board with, I think I mentioned it earlier, with all of these affirmations on it. And I put it by the door of my bathroom. And at the time, I didn't believe not one affirmation on that board. And every morning I would walk past that board and it was such in bright colors that I couldn't miss it. Then I started looking at myself in the mirror and started speaking to myself and saying those affirmations out loud. And I can remember the first few times that I did it, I was like crying to myself in the mirror because I just didn't believe it. And I just wanted to believe it so bad. I wanted to move on from this so bad. And I was also obviously dealing with PTSD too. So that was like the first thing really that started me on the journey. And also talking about it, like openly talking about it with my friends and family after not sharing it at all and keeping it private for the time that I was dealing with it, I think was very therapeutic and healing. And obviously you have to be selective over who you share with, but the people that I felt safe with, I started talking and openly sharing. I started doing that. And then I think after that point, it was just, for me, traveling has been such a freeing space. I've always loved traveling, but like stepping into spaces that like I've never seen before and taking a moment to look at the scenery and like taking a breath and appreciating the fact that I'm alive and I can see the world, and there's so many greater things out there than just my little bubble of what I'm going through and how small the world feels when you're traumatized. That has been the ultimate like savior for me, for sure. I would say, yeah, traveling. Absolutely. I don't think I'll ever stop traveling because it's just so freeing for my soul. And then on top of therapy and working out and being kind to myself and all these things, this is years and years and years and years of stuff. But yeah, I think that was really where I started.
What's next?
What is next for what? That's a very...
For everything.
Everything.
Talk to me about like you're moving more into this like activist lobbying space, and away from the modeling piece. Like,
yeah, I just feel that modeling doesn't fulfill me. I never felt modeling fulfilled me, but I knew that
it was your door.
It was a good door. It was a good space, and I knew that I could use my platform to do a lot of positive things. I'm a very creative person, obviously, with like the acting, singing, dancing. Modeling doesn't fulfill that like space that I need for creativity. So I am currently moving out of modeling, still using my platform to work with brands, but in a different space, having more of a voice, having more say as far as like what I want to do with brands, and it be like me times them instead of just like
brand as opposed to partner.
Yeah. And I think that just serves me more. It's on my time. I also get to do more, and I can also be creative. Like I absolutely love fashion outside of like all of the other stuff. Fashion is something that I've always been really, really into, and I really enjoy creating content and like putting on outfits. And
by the way, if you're not following your Instagram, you need to. Like, I literally went on the other day, I was like, what should I wear? And you came off my Instagram, I was like, that is fire. Like, what else does she be wearing? And like went through like all of your outfits and was like, inspo, thank you.
Oh my God. But what I do like about that is that like, because I'm not stick thin, because I'm not your average like influencer, I think that girls can relate to me because
100%.
they see my body and they're like, oh, I look like that. Oh, I have a bit of a belly too. Oh, I don't have massive boobs. Oh, I feel like I look like this. Okay, great. Well, if it looks good on her and she feels confident to wear it, I can wear it too. And I think that's also why I really love like having my platform in the fashion sense.
I think that's part of your superpower, if I'm honest, because I wouldn't say you're an influencer. Because to me,
I actually kind of find that offensive, but you know, people always love to say I'm an influencer.
But my point being is, to me, an influencer is literally like a paid billboard. They're just a human being, and for the most part, I don't believe people relate to influencers anymore because it is so
saturated.
Oh my god, so saturated. But also, it's so fake. It's so fake. It's all the like set up shots and the fucking private jets and the this and that. I'm like, that's not real. That's the whole point of influencers in the first place, was because you could relate to the person. Like, it was another human being. It wasn't just a model on a runway. And we've completely lost that in this like world of having to put out the highlight reel of like what we all look like.
But it
like,
also does still sell because
it does.
people want to be like that.
But it sells painkillers because people of their own insecurities, as opposed to positive relation to me looking at you in a dress being like, she looks fucking bad, I'm gonna go and see a House of CB right now and buy that too.
But you also have a choice of who you follow on social media, so if you don't like that
curate
sort
the
of
feed
thing,
you want. Yeah.
And actually I do follow girls on Instagram that are very much that influencer thing, but they wear nice outfits, they have no personality whatsoever, and they're struggling to get into the reels and the TikToks. They just look great in pictures, they have great fashion sense, they wear the clothes, and I go and look at the clothes and I'm like, oh great, that's what they're for. They're my little like Pinterest for shopping clothes. That's it. And they
billboard.
and they know what they're good at and they just stick to that. I think for me, I've always been more than that. And I think, you know, I have a purpose in life, and I really have a voice, and there's lots of things I'm very passionate about, and I'm working on doing more and being more and creating more, and in the midst of that, I still love fashion. So if I can be more relatable and more open, and women can also like me on top of want to wear what I want to wear, then great. Fantastic.
Win-win.
Get your outfit, get your positivity, and we out.
It's like literally like just drop by the Instagram pages for like a wham of like all in one go. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's taken me a while to really like set the tone for like what it is that I believe in and what it is that my social media looks like, and I still think I have a lot of evolving to do, especially now moving into this space with like less modeling and more activism and more speaking about domestic violence, more speaking about healthy relationships, all of these things. I want to start creating more content to do with that, creating more spaces, interacting with more women that do those things. I think I'm now elevating into a different space, and I'm just letting it evolve there. I'm not like forcing it. It's happening as it goes, and everything's in motion, and finally all my hard work is like paying off, and I know there's still a long way to go, but yeah, it feels good.
You look good.
Thanks.
Like when you say that, you're like, I can feel the like positivity glowing from you.
Yeah, because it's genuine. Like, it's the who I am online is really authentic. Like, I'm not putting up a front for social media. Like, I genuinely am that person. Whatever it is that I put up is genuinely what I believe, what I want to say, what I want to wear, what I want to do. I don't even take brand deals that
I love that.
I don't authentically believe in. So I think that just makes my life easier. It makes it happier, and it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like me, just living my life and traveling the world and making money and also helping people in the process.
Sounds
Who
like
couldn't
a dream.
ask for any more?
Yeah. It's like, sign me up, babe. Like, sounds amazing. When's the next flight?
Right.
Do you think 21-year-old you would be proud of where you are now?
Absolutely. 21-year-old me would be crying right now if she could see where I was at. Because I remember having no papers and standing in the restaurant and looking across the street at this massive apartment complex, and I was like, one day I'm gonna have my own apartment. one day I'm going to have a walk-in closet. One day I'm going to be that kick-ass woman that I look up to, that rolls up in her nice car and has it all together. And I know I'm saying material things because at the time I just couldn't even fathom that ever being a thing. And now I have like I have all of that and more, and the opportunities that I've had in my career. Like, if I told my 21-year-old self that was going to be the case, I would have been like, yo, really? No way. Absolutely no way. So yeah, I think she would be really happy. For sure.
Which leads me perfectly on to my final question. And this is something I ask all of the guests that come on this podcast, which is, what are 3 things you would tell your 21-year-old self if you could go back and tell her?
Don't date anyone. Focus on yourself.
Solid advice.
Who do not date anyone. Focus on yourself. Oh my God, that's the main one. That's what I would tell myself. I would also tell myself, don't stress out because everything's going to work out. And enjoy your life. Enjoy every moment. Like, take every opportunity and enjoy every moment of your life, because it passes by so quick, and you've got to just like really let that sink in. Like, those would be the things I would tell myself.
I think I speak for the audience and for myself when I say you're the most infectious, inspiring, gorgeous human being. So thank you so much for giving up the time and jumping straight off a fucking plane to be here, because my God, girl's jet lagged and she is glowing. So if you could give me the recos for the skincare, that would be amazing.
Just oil all over my face, literally.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.